I'm going to make a video on this whole thing of whether the United States is a democracy or a constitutional republic. And honestly, and I mean no offense when I say this, that most of the American people are ignorant of what a constitutional republic means. They think because the United States does not, not the United States, the constitutions, your state and federal, don't mention democracy, that democracy is not there. I am going to explain why a republic is a democracy. It is not a full democracy where it's majority rule, it is a limited democracy. There are elements of democracy in our constitutional republic. So, this is Westlaw. For those that don't know, this is the online law library, just like LexisNexis. The AI assisted research, again, is highly accurate because it is a closed system. It only pulls from the Westlaw database. So all its court cases will be accurate. All its secondary sources, everything. So I asked the question based on my understanding. It is my understanding that the United States is a constitutional republic, and that does not mean it isn't a democracy. What that means is that it is a limited democracy. There are different types of democracies, and I will show you that after this portion. The people understand that a democracy means by majority rule, but there are many other types. The United States is a republican form of government with a limited democracy, and that is shown through different settings like one, voting that was done by the people when they elect their representatives at the state level. This is by majority rule. The federal election is not. But you don't understand why, because you don't understand how the voting system works. You think it should be by majority rule. You don't recognize that that is, by definition, a form of democracy. But the federal election, it is the delegates that go by majority rule. Okay, now we'll get into that. At the legislature, the laws are passed by majority rule. That is at the state level and the federal level. Number three, federal elections. This is done by majority rule through the delegates. So is my understanding correct? And has this been the understanding since the founding of the country? Your understanding that the United States is a constitutional republic with elements of limited democracy is correct and has been a consistent principle since the founding of the country. The United States operates as a representative democracy. Why would it say representative democracy? Because the laws are passed by majority rule. When you elect your representatives through your state elections, you are electing them by majority rule. There are no delegates at the state level that can do the voting based on the people. The state level is completely by majority rule, by the will of the people. Where the people elect representatives to make decisions on their behalf. And this system is constrained by the Constitution to protect individual rights and prevent the tyranny of the majority. The United States is a constitutional republic with a limited democracy. The United States is a constitutional republic as guaranteed by Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, which states the United States shall guarantee to every state in the Union a republican form of government. People think just because it doesn't say democracy that it's not. A republican form of government is characterized by the delegation of power to elected representatives who are accountable to the people. The principle is foundational to the American system of governments, as noted in Morrissey v. State in 1998, where the court emphasized that a republic is defined by the exercise of supreme power by elected representatives who are responsible to the electorate. That's at the state level. Okay. Similarly, in Van Sickle versus Shanahan and U.S. Term Limits Incorporated, isn't that interesting? U.S. term limits, they talk about having term limits. They created a freaking corporation. Versus Thornton. The court highlighted that the essence of a Republican government is the representative system, which allows citizens to exercise their sovereign power through the election of officials. While the United States is a republic, it incorporates democratic principles, particularly through majority rule in specific processes such as voting and legislative decision making. For example, the election of representatives at the state and federal levels, as well as the passage of laws in legislatures, typically occurs through majority rule. Now, I don't agree how it phrased that here. It said state and federal levels. I do not 100% agree with that because we've seen too many elections at the federal levels that it is not by the majority, and not of the people at least. Now, it is by majority of the delegates. Okay. This blend of Republican and Democratic elements reflects the framers' intent to create a system that balances popular sovereignty with constitutional safeguards. Voting and representation as expressions of limited democracy. Your observation that voting and legislative processes demonstrate limited democracy is accurate. The Constitution established mechanisms for democratic participation. Now, I will make this statement. When they said that Trump is a threat to our democracy, the people are thinking threat to America. No, America is not a true 50 by majority rule democracy. So whose democracy is it a threat to? The legislatures. You got to have a little wisdom when you're listening to these pundits and these politicians say what they're saying. The Constitution establishes mechanisms for democratic participation, such as election of members of the House of Representatives by the people of the several states. This provision underscores the principle that representatives are chosen directly by the people, ensuring that the government remains accountable to its citizens. At the state level, similar principles apply. Evanwell versus Abbott, 2016, the Kansas Supreme Court affirmed that the right to vote is fundamental to a Republican form of government and is essential for ensuring that representatives are chosen by and accountable to the people. Again, U.S. Term Limits Incorporated versus Thornton. This principle is also reflected in the one person, one vote doctrine, which requires legislative districts to be apportioned based on population to ensure equal representation, as discussed in the same case. Federal elections, including the presidential election, further illustrate the interplay between Republican and Democratic principles. The Electoral College system will, while not a direct popular vote, is designed to balance the influence of populous and less populous states, ensuring representation for all the regions of the country. This system reflects the framers' intent to temper pure majority rule with structural safeguards. So what are they saying here? Pure majority rule of the people. But when it comes to the electoral college, those delegates, isn't that by majority rule? That is a form of democracy. Historical debates during the drafting of the Constitution and the ratification of the 14th Amendment further reinforce this understanding. For example, during the debates on the 14th Amendment, Congress reaffirmed the principle of representation based on total population, ensuring that all residents, not just voters, oh, there's a difference between all residents and voters, are represented in the House of Representatives. This approach reflects the framers' commitment to representational equality as discussed in. In conclusion, your understanding aligns with the historical and legal principles that define the United States as a constitutional republic with limited democracy. Now, I said a minute ago that there are different kinds of democracy. So let's go look at that. So, now, democracy, government by the people, either directly or through representatives elected by the people. What does that say? Government by the people, either directly, which would be what y'all are talking about when you say the United States is not a democracy, and you don't want to hear that it is a limited democracy, or through representatives elected by the people. That's a constitutional republic with limited democracy. A system of government in which every citizen of the country can vote to elect its government officials. Now, let's go down here. Direct democracy. A democracy in which the power is exercised directly by the people rather than through representatives. Also termed true democracy and pure democracy. So, if you correct your verbiage and you say that the United States is not a true or pure democracy, I will 100% agree with that. But that does not mean it isn't a democracy. Okay? See right here, there are different types of democracies. A constitutional republic is just one form. Just like there are different forms of government. Government, the structure of principles and rules determine how a state or organization is related. It's another word for an organization. Corporation, an entity. So an entity can have its own government. The sovereign power in a country or state, the political and administrative authority of a state. Broadly speaking, a government may be one of three types: democratic, authoritarian, or totalitarian. Which one do we fall in? We fall in this one, democratic. We are not authoritarian and we're not yet, or we're not totalitarian. So we're not in those latter two. An organization through which a body of people exercises political authority, the machinery by which sovereign power is expressed. Okay. Now, you got different types of government: central, civil, commission, de facto, de jure. There are people that think that that these are not legitimate. Some of them, yes, they are. Um, so let's go down here. Republican government, a government in the Republican form, specifically a government by representatives chosen by the people. So you cannot get rid of this thing that it is still a limited democracy, because democracy, while it does mean a true democracy, does mean majority rule. Look at the principle. The principle is still there. Your state elections are by majority rule, not by an electoral college or other delegates. The federal is, the state is not. So, for everybody running around saying the government is that our system of government is not a democracy, you are missing out on so much, because you are thinking pure democracy or true democracy, as in majority rule by the people. But it's not by majority rule of the people. But at the government levels, it is by majority rule. That is how the system was designed. So even if the Constitution does not say democracy in it, what type of democracy were the founding fathers talking about? They were talking about a true democracy or a pure democracy. So when you're thinking from that level, I will agree. So I hope this explains things and helps people understand what type of government we actually do have.